Welcome to Shri and Kira Live, the voice of passionate action, bringing fresh perspectives and timeless wisdom for today's shifting paradigm. Now, it is your moment to open your mind, relax into your body and spirit as we explore the greater meaning of your now experience. Bringing wisdom, laughter, and clarity, here are Shri and Kira.
Namaste, beloved ones, and welcome to the Voice of Passionate Action. I am Kira Ra.
And I am Shri Ram Ka, and we are delighted to be with you.
You know, Shri, this is such a special show. It's been such a special month. And aren't you blown away that this month is almost over? I am.
Well,
I'm really blown away.
I try not to look at those things.
Well, you know, I think that's just as well. And you know, as you're saying, I try not to look at those things. Today's show, you know, remember, we're in this powerful, Shri and I have been calling it November, you know, this November, December energy, and very, very, very powerful. And, you know, this month has been building. And today we're going to talk about the Ebola myth, because that's what this is, guys. It's a myth. And we have a lot to talk about. Shri and I are going to share some things that are probably uncomfortable for a lot of people to hear, and some things that a lot of you are probably already sitting there going, I knew that was true. Because we're going to also really tie this into the true healing power that you have inside of you and the destructive power of fear. Because, I mean, let's face it, the Ebola myth is really about fear.
Fear is truly, to quote a movie, the mind killer.
Yes, it is. All right, Dune.
And one of the things I want to remind folks is when you begin to accept that there is a rational, reasonable threat, then you've swallowed your fear hook, line, and sinker.
Right.
You know, and that's part of the illusion, is that we tend to be spoon-fed what we call our reasonable or rational fears.
Right.
And then they're trumped up to the level of irrationality, allowing people of a more sensible nature to relax back into a normal level of fear.
Now, you know, Shri and okay, now Shri said that. You guys need to know, I was kind of looking at him like, who is this? Because if you didn't catch the fact that he was being extremely ironic, please do.
And so one of the things we want to poke fun at is how the Western media, especially in the United States, you know, it's really gotten to quite an extreme. And when you don't have any comparisons, then they begin to be accepted as the norm.
Yeah, yes.
You know, I want to tell you, the first time I went to New York, and we stayed at a nice hotel up on the 7th or 8th floor, and it was so noisy, horns honking and traffic.
We had to go up. What did we? I think I made them move us to the 18th. Poor Shri.
Anyway, and I was talking to some New Yorkers, and I said, "Boy, it's noisy." And they said, "What are you talking about?" You know, they don't even notice it anymore. Similarly, people who go to the country who have lived in the city find that the quiet
is scary,
is irritating.
It's intimidating.
You know? Intimidating. Yeah. And so it is with the silly televised news media that is so widespread in the United States, especially with the level of distortion, exaggeration, inflammation, and sheer drama that is given sound bites. When you have nothing to compare it to, people begin to accept it.
Well, now this is really, Shri, I love that you're bringing this up, because, you know, as we dive into today's show, talking about the Ebola myth and your true healing power, and we have a wonderful guest we're going to be bringing on, Ted Galdi, in just a few moments. One of the things that I want to share is that it's important to remember, beloved ones, that, and we've done a lot of shows about this, that the group think, okay? Group think means that your thoughts, whether you're aware of it or not, 87% of the general population literally have beliefs and thoughts and ideas that are being conditioned through what's known as groupthink. And groupthink is the total sum of the energy, the media, the words, the stories, the selection of stories that you bombard yourself with, whether you're doing it intentionally or unintentionally. And the only way that you can be independently thinking is to be conscious of the groupthink stereotype and the groupthink model and allow yourself to recognize that free thinking is not a crime. Sri and I have been recently revisiting, and if you haven't revisited it, go revisit the, oh goodness gracious, the Oliver Stone series on history. What was that called? That's it. The Untold History of the United States. If you've not visited that lately, it was 10 shows. It was done on Showtime. We grabbed it online. Go revisit it. And here's why. It was a brilliant, broad attempt, and I really honor and respect Oliver Stone's attempt to bring forward the fact that we have had over the past several hundred years several rare opportunities to shift out of the groupthink fear tank. And every time we have not been able to accomplish that. And perhaps that's one of the reasons the Ebola myth is here, is to offer us another reason to shift out of this groupthink fear tank, because that's what's going on. And I love, Shri, that we're talking about this in this November, December moment, because this was also what happened in early November. In early November in the United States, you saw a dramatic, I'm going to use the word polarization to the conservative right of the United States. And you're also seeing this sweeping worldwide right now. And historically, that's when we hit very dangerous moments.
Well, it's one of those ones that I hate to admit I'm a little cynical. It's just that
don't admit that.
I won't admit it. I just stand witness to the political process in the United States and how the pendulum swings back and forth. And this isn't the first time there's been a midterm election where a lot of Republicans were elected. I think it happened during Clinton's.
It did.
And the point of the matter is, regardless of the drama, the polarization, the taking sides, my party is better than your party, regardless of all of that, regardless of who's in the White House, there seems to be a momentum at work.
Yes.
In the political process that doesn't really give a hoot about what political party is in charge. The momentum keeps marching forward.
Well, and this is where I think this Ebola myth, and I just want to say it this way. Of course, Ebola is real. When we talk about the Ebola myth, we are not trying to say, we're not standing up as a right-wing conservative saying that there's no such thing as global warming. So we're not saying there is no such thing as Ebola. Ebola is very real, but it's been around for a very long time. What we want to really look at today is, why is this the myth of Ebola, the way that we're making a hysteria, the way that we're bringing it to the public world view? Why is that coming up right now? And we've got lots and lots of real things to talk about regarding that.
Well, and the one just to kind of set the groundwork here is, it's truly a tragic situation in West Africa.
Yes.
There's 4,000 or 5,000 people have died.
Yeah, no, it's horrid.
Of this virus. And in large part, the deaths are due to the lack of sanitary conditions, the inability to deal with infected material, and even those people that have passed on. Well, when they deal with their burial rites,
right? That's been the biggest problem.
Infection for large numbers.
They also say that it was because of the burial procedures and because of the lack of education. That's what made it worse.
And so this tragedy in Africa has a completely different context than exists in westernized countries. And the level of sanitation and understanding of disease and transmission is quite different. And the level of governmental infrastructure and resources are quite different in the U.S. and Europe.
Well,
and other countries.
As you're saying that,
so why would we be terrorized?
Well, that's why I was just thinking, as you were saying that, I was kind of smiling, thinking, and as we sit here and calmly talk about that, of course, I'm sure you're sitting here listening, going, well, yes, of course. Yet, when there is a frenzy of talking points, because talking points, remember, are control points. Talking points are ways to control group think. And so when the talking points all become around this alarmist atmosphere and this ridiculous sense of lack of understanding, that's when things become fear-based. And I want to remind all of you guys, we are live today. So, certainly give us a call if you want to get into the queue. You can give us a buzz at 888-627-6008. Again, that's 888-627-6008. Get in the queue. And remember, while you're in the queue, you can listen live. And also, we are enjoy your questions, your comments, and of course your requests for soul readings. But Shri, getting back to this whole thing right now, what I find fascinating, and we have so many things that we want to share that I'm not sure a lot of you out there listening are aware of. one of the things I find fascinating is that who are the winners? What would be the reason that a quote unquote Ebola fear scare or a heightened alert level for Ebola? We don't have a coding system yet, but I wouldn't doubt they put one in. I don't know what terror color we're at, but so what? Who would win by that? Well, the first obvious winner are these big pharma companies that just received billions of dollars of emergency money. We just pulled billions of dollars of this money out of God knows what rabbit's hat to give to big pharma to develop an epidemic. Excuse me, there's a slip to develop the vaccine. And you look at, okay, well, who was the first one to win by this? Well, that's the first big winner, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the whole notion that we need an Ebola czar in the United States.
That's
Isn't
amazing.
That crazy when you take a look at all the other illnesses and problems in the U.S.
Absolutely.
That they would appoint and create another bureaucracy
Correct.
for an infinitesimal risk.
Right.
Be that as it may, and there are those that certainly would argue with my use of words there, the one thing that is important, I think, is to recognize that we live in two zones. There is the part of us that's engaging this illusionary world of density that has its conventions, its cultures, its delights, and its tragedies. And certainly the political situation, let alone the economic and social situation in various countries, is very engaging. And yet each of us carries within our own ascended hearts, within our own inner being, a sense of a deeper truth. And that truth needs to be fanned. It needs to be given its space because it's the source of the underlying harmony.
Absolutely.
It's the part of us that's connected to the fabric beneath which all of this dance of diversity is, let's just say, amusing us.
Well, I love that. And, here's some of the things. What if, the Shri and I are going to share with you, what if there was an absolute safe, non-pharmaceutical alternative that is having incredible results curing Ebola? Would the FDA try to stop it? Yes. Would doctors that are promoting it go be under scrutiny and be getting attacked? Yes. And we've got all these facts that we're going to be sharing with you today because there are ways you can deal with this. We also have an amazing guest on the show today, and we're really delighted because this young man, I love this generation of people. I really do. And when this young man's information came across my desk, I just looked at our booking agent and said, yes, I really want to meet this person. I love what he's doing. A beautiful young man named Ted Galdi, who's recently written a book called Elixir.
And Elixir is a novel. It's an exciting story of how a teenager.
I love that.
How a teenager.
A teenage genius.
Genius, okay. Certainly inspired.
Yes.
Managed to cure his girlfriend of a deadly disease.
Known as Ebola.
We'll let Ted tell more about that story in a minute. And just by way of further introduction, Ted wrote this novel when he was 29 years old after graduating from Duke University. And he has pursued achievements in film and video and digital media, and he's now working in the software industry, having founded a company. And so Ted wrote Elixir in 2013, and certainly there is a wonderful timing, a wonderful synchronicity.
I love it.
As Ebola hits the world stage and his book was released, there was a synergy there that has given him a boost and brought forward his brilliance to the public eye.
Absolutely.
He's been on ABC and Fox and radio stations. And now he's here with you today.
And we're just delighted to have him because this is a book that needs to get out there. It's funny to me that anything that talks about the beauty of our ability to call forth our genius self.
And our natural healing capacity.
Absolutely. And what a rich dialogue. And so welcome, Ted. We're delighted to have you on the show.
Hey, guys. It's great to be here.
Super. Well, we are just delighted to, when somebody rises up into the public eye quickly, it certainly begs some curiosities and questions, and yet a part of me just smiles and say, that's the way change happens. That's the way good things happen.
So, Ted, I have to ask straight out, because I just love what's going on in your life right now and your energy and how you're bringing it forward. What was your inspiration? I mean, you know, out of all the things that you said, I'm going to write, this is going to be my book. What was the inspiration? What brought this book together for you?
Yeah, so it was funny where I conceptualized the idea for this book way before the Ebola outbreak was in the news. So it came from a place where I wanted to write an exciting, thrilling story. And I had the premise of, a teenage genius getting thrown into these wild situations because of his smarts. But it really kind of came together when I said, let's layer in a love story and make it a coming of age, adventure about this kid kind of morphing through the years and, finding himself, even though he's, super smart and he's involved in these crazy situations. It really is a universal teenage growing up issue that's at the center of this book that I think a lot of people could relate to, even though the kid in the book is, a 1 in a billion type person.
Right.
Finding himself and dealing with his natural ability, the good and the bad of it, and, being happy with himself at the end and embracing what he naturally was given is really the theme of the book. And it came from more that place than hey, I'm going to write a medical a medical book that really is about a disease or whatnot. It was really more that story element with the protagonist that inspired me.
So you were writing a story about human emotions and the development of maturity and love.
Absolutely. So that was the motivation. But then, when Ebola wound up making it into the news, right after the book was released, which was an insane coincidence, it definitely took on a bit of a different spin, where I was hoping that the book could educate people about the disease and bring public awareness towards finding a cure in the right ways. And the book does shine a light really on how horrible the disease is, and how easily you could catch it if you are exposed to it. And hopefully that makes people think we really need to stop this in whatever fashion that may be. So it does accomplish that as well, even though that wasn't necessarily the initial intention of me writing it.
Well, I'm giggling because Shri and I specialize in serendipitous events and unintentional positive consequences.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Right. And so, like it or not, you were channeling. Yeah. I'm sure you were channeling when you brought this book through, because what inspired you to say, okay, I'm going to go toward Ebola? I mean, how did that come up for you? It was like, well, of all the diseases you could have picked, why Ebola? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was, I was thinking about it, and there were obviously a lot of diseases that could have fit into this fictional story. Ebola just happened to be, after I was doing some research, a disease that, one, is extremely deadly, and it has the sort of effect that could set the stakes very high in a fictional story, and I did want to accomplish that in the story. And then two, it works very quickly. So unlike other diseases, if you get Ebola and you don't have the proper care, and you have a little bit of bad luck with it, it could really work fast. So from a fictional standpoint, that was good in terms of a plot where the stakes were set really high, and the protagonist had a very short time window to cure the disease. And it kind of just boosted the suspense of it. And that's why Ebola really fit in. It was nothing more complicated than that.
And perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Every good thriller has a deadline and a lot of sense of urgency.
Yeah,
but it doesn't always have a teenage genius. And so I don't want to give away too much of the book, but I would assume that we could share that the teenage genius who does this curing must have come under a lot of interesting or gone through a lot of interesting scenarios because he was doing something that wasn't quite the mainstream.